Things got rather heated at Queen's Park today over the controversial Bill 5. As Julie Sharp tells us, one MPP was ejected from the Ontario legislature after claiming Doug Ford is lying to First Nations.
The Premier is telling untruths to First Nations.
Please withdraw.
When a political leader gets thrown out of the legislature for calling the government corrupt and then doubles down on that accusation outside the chamber, you know things have gone completely off the rails. Welcome to Ontario politics in 2024, where the gloves are off, the accusations are flying, and Marit Stiles just became the opposition leader who refused to back down. Quick favor, if you're loving this, hit that subscribe button and smash the notification bell to keep getting the latest updates on Canadian and UK politics. Cheers if you did. Now back to the show. Picture this, you're in the Ontario legislature, tensions are already running high, and suddenly the NDP leader stands up and drops the C word. No, not that one. The other one that makes politicians break out in hives. Corrupt. She called the Ford government corrupt, right there in the chamber. And just like that, Marit Stiles was shown the door faster than you can say parliamentary privilege. But here is where it gets absolutely brilliant. Instead of apologizing, instead of walking it back, instead of doing what every political handbook tells you to do when you have been ejected from the legislature, Stiles went outside and said it again, louder, with receipts. Now, let us rewind and understand why this moment matters. The Ford government has been under fire for months over the Greenbelt scandal, a controversy so messy it makes a soap opera.
Our rights are not being respected.
Draw the comment.
I'm not withdrawing. Speak.
Sam Malmakwa, you have been named.
A few minutes into question period at Queen's Park today, NDP MPP Sam Malmakwa was removed after he refused several times to take back his comments accusing Premier Doug Ford of lying.
You cannot trample on inherent rights. You cannot trample on First Nations.
Look like a documentary. For those just joining us, here is the short version. The Ontario government decided to remove land from the protected Greenbelt to build housing. Noble cause, right? Except the land that got removed just happened to benefit a few well-connected developers who had recently purchased it. What a remarkable coincidence. Then it came out that some of these developers had connections to Ford's inner circle. Another stunning coincidence. The whole thing stank worse than last week's rubbish bin, and the opposition was not about to let it slide. Stiles has been hammering away at this issue for months, demanding accountability, calling for investigations, and generally making the Ford government's life miserable. But on this particular day in the legislature, she decided subtlety was overrated. She looked across the chamber and said what many Ontarians were thinking: this government is corrupt. Now, in parliamentary tradition, there are rules about what you can and cannot say. You can question someone's judgment, their policies, even their haircut if you are feeling cheeky. But calling another member corrupt? That is crossing a line. The Speaker had no choice but to eject her. Standard procedure. What happens next is what you definitely order off menu. Most politicians, when ejected, will either stay quiet or issue a carefully worded statement through their communications team. Stiles?
Nation rights. You cannot trample on those things and get away with it. They need to be said in a very public way. The Premier is telling untruths.
She walked straight to the microphones outside Queen's Park and essentially said, "Yeah, I said it. I will say it again. The Ford government is corrupt, and I am not taking it back." The absolute audacity. The sheer brass neck of it. It was like watching someone get sent to detention and then giving the headmaster the middle finger on the way out. Except, you know, in a parliamentary democracy kind of way. But here is why this matters beyond the political theater. Stiles was not just throwing around accusations for dramatic effect. She backed it up. She pointed to the Greenbelt scandal, the housing minister's resignation, the leaked documents showing developers knew about changes before the public did, the investigations that revealed massive conflicts of interest. She had the evidence, and she was done playing nice. In her own words, when you see corruption, you have a duty to call it out, even
Basically, it's another way of the Premier, the government is lying.
According to the Ford government, Bill 5 is meant to hasten economic development in the province and will give the government power to suspend provincial and municipal laws for chosen projects in areas deemed to have so-called economic importance. It would also remove some endangered species.
Even if it means getting tossed from the chamber. It is hard to argue with that logic, even if it does break parliamentary decorum. The Ford government, naturally, was having none of it. They called her remarks unparliamentary, reckless, and politically motivated. Which, to be fair, they absolutely were politically motivated. That is literally her job as opposition leader. But were they reckless? That depends on whether you think calling out potential corruption is more important than maintaining parliamentary civility. Stiles clearly made her choice, and judging by the reaction on social media and from political watchers, a lot of people were here for it. Finally, someone saying what everyone else was thinking, consequences be damned. Now, let us talk about what this means for Ontario politics going forward. This was not just a one-off outburst. This was a calculated move by a leader who decided that playing by the traditional rules was not getting results. The Ford government has a massive majority. They can essentially do whatever they want. Traditional opposition tactics like pointed questions and strongly worded motions are about as effective as bringing a spoon to a sword fight. So Stiles changed the game. She made herself the story, forced the media to cover it, and put the corruption allegations back in the headlines. Brilliant political strategy, even if it means she cannot sit in the chamber for a bit.
Protections. The bill is being opposed by multiple Indigenous groups, environmentalists, and the opposition. Last week, the province said it would make amendments to the law to include special Indigenous economic zones at the request of First Nations for projects they want fast-tracked. However, Mamakwa says that is not the case.
And the public response? It has been fascinating. Some people think Stiles is a hero for speaking truth to power. Others think she undermined parliamentary democracy. But here is the thing, everyone is talking about it. Everyone is discussing whether the Ford government is corrupt. The allegations are being debated in coffee shops, on social media, around dinner tables. Mission accomplished. Thanks for watching, folks. This is Epic Icons News, where politics gets real.